The loud floorboard became a problem at exactly 6:42 the next morning. I know the time because I checked my phone immediately afterward, standing perfectly still in my kitchen holding a spoon midair like I'd been caught doing something illegal. The floorboard had opinions, strong ones. I'd stepped on it barefoot, which somehow made the sound worse, a long, dramatic squeak that suggested betrayal. The kind that didn't just announce your presence, it narrated your intent. I waited. Nothing happened. No knock from June's apartment, no passive-aggressive counter-squeak, no ceiling thump from below. I exhaled and resumed stirring my oatmeal, which had already crossed the line from warming up to making choices. I turned the stove off and leaned against the counter, eating directly from the pot like a man who had accepted certain truths about himself. I thought about the previous night in the same careful, distant way I thought about most things that could potentially become something else. Meaning, I acknowledged it happened. I categorized it. I moved on. June was funny, nice, observant, a good conversationalist. She lived next door. That was the list. I didn't add subpoints. I didn't underline anything. I didn't circle back. I showered, got dressed, and made a mental note to step around the floorboard on my way out. This worked for exactly 2 steps before muscle memory betrayed me. The floorboard squeaked again. "Okay," I whispered. "We've talked about this." It did not respond. I grabbed my keys, carefully, with respect, and left the apartment. The hallway was empty, which was fine, normal, expected. Still, I noticed. The elevator ride down was uneventful. The lobby smelled like coffee this time, not lavender. Someone had upgraded their detergent or their priorities. Outside, the rain had downgraded itself to a mist, the kind that made umbrellas optional but coats mandatory. I walked to the cafe across the street, the one under our building technically, because I decided it was my cafe now. That's how cities work. You pick places and hope they accept you. Inside, it was warm and loud in a low, steady way. The espresso machine hissed. A grinder screamed briefly and then stopped. A barista with a sleeve of tattoos was arguing gently with a customer about oat milk. I waited in line and stared at the menu even though I always ordered the same thing. "Morning," the barista said when it was my turn. "Morning," I said. "Medium drip." He nodded like this was a good decision. "Room?" "Yeah." I paid and stepped aside, scrolling through my phone without actually reading anything. My reflection in the glass pastry case looked awake enough to be convincing. "Elliot." I looked up. June stood near the pickup counter holding a paper cup and smiling like this was completely normal and not a thing my brain immediately overreacted to. "Oh," I said intelligently. "Hi." She wore a jacket that looked softer than mine and had her hair pulled back in a way that suggested effort without advertising it. She looked awake. This felt unfair. "Morning," she said. "You survived the floorboard?" I blinked. "You heard that?" "Everyone hears that," she said. "It's basically a community announcement." "I'm working on a workaround." "Good luck," she said. "It squeaks even when you think you're being careful." That felt pointed, but probably wasn't. "Did you just get in?" I asked. "Mm-hmm. Early shift today." "At the bookstore," I said. She smiled. "Look at you, remembering things." "I remember things," I said, selectively. "I appreciate selective memory," she said. "It keeps life interesting." My coffee appeared on the counter. I picked it up and took a sip immediately, burning my tongue slightly because I never learn. June watched this with open amusement. "Bold," she said. "I like to establish dominance early," I said, voice tight. She laughed, not loud, not polite, real. I felt it in my chest like a small jolt. We stood there for a second longer than necessary, the noise of the cafe filling the space around us so we didn't have to. "So," she said eventually, lifting her coffee, "same time tomorrow?" I almost said, "What?" Instead, I said, "I usually come down around this time." She nodded. "Me too, on early days." There was a pause, a perfectly reasonable pause, one where I could have suggested something. Anything, like coffee together, or walking out at the same time, or acknowledging that this was, in fact, a moment. Instead, I said, "Well, I should and gestured vaguely towards the door, like my job was waiting outside with a stopwatch. "Right," she said just as easily. "Work." "Work," I confirmed. She took a step back, giving me space, which I accepted gratefully and without examining why. "See you around." "Yeah, see you." She left first, and I watched her go in the same unthinking way I'd done the night before. Then I told myself to stop doing that. The day passed the way days do when nothing notable happens, but your brain insists on revisiting the same 3 moments anyway. I worked, I answered emails, I sat through a meeting that could have been an email. I ate lunch at my desk and spilled a little soup on my keyboard, which I chose to interpret as a sign. Around mid-afternoon, Theo leaned over the divider between our desks. "You look distracted," I said. "I'm not." "You're stirring your coffee with a pen." I looked down. I was. "Multitasking," I said. Theo raised an eyebrow. "Sure." He grabbed his mug and leaned against my desk. "So you meeting people now?" "I meet people," I said. "Uh-huh. Anyone interesting?" I considered lying, not because there was anything to hide, but because I didn't feel like explaining something that wasn't a thing. "New neighbor," I said instead. Theo nodded slowly, like this confirmed a theory. "And?" "And nothing," I said. "She's just nice." Theo smiled in a way that suggested he had opinions. If she wanted more, she'd say so. I shrugged. "That seems fair." "Right?" he said. "People overthink stuff. If it matters, it's obvious." That sounded right, logical, comforting. I nodded and went back to work. When I got home that evening, the hallway was quiet again. I stepped carefully around the floorboard. It squeaked anyway. I sighed and went inside. Later, as I brushed my teeth and stared at my reflection like it might tell me something useful, I thought about the way June said, "Same time tomorrow." I thought about how I didn't respond to that part at all. I told myself it didn't seem important, and that felt true at the time.